members. It has gone 2 o'clock, and I would like us to start the meeting of the Standing Committee on Public Accounts of the Provincial Parliament of the Western Cape. In us starting, let me make use of the opportunity to welcome you, honorable members, to this meeting, and the meeting is going to be done in 2 parts. The first part is going to be the in-committee meeting, which is the confidential meeting of the committee, and the meeting it's not allowed to the public to attend. It's only those members of the standing committee that are allowed to attend. And also in this meeting will be briefed by the Auditor General of South Africa, as well as the Audit Committee of the Provincial Treasury, as well as that of the Gaming and Racing Board. Now, in starting the meeting, can I get an indication of those members of parliament that are available or that are
opportunity to appear before SCOPA, obviously to discuss the annual reports in relation to the 2020-21 financial year. I would like to just apologize to members of the committee for dropping in momentarily as you started the meeting at 2 o'clock this afternoon. But at PT, of course, we like to think that an hour before time is on time. Chairperson, with that, I'd like to hand over to the HOD who has joined us. I can confirm he has joined us, perhaps to make any opening remarks and just introduce broadly the team that's joined us this afternoon.
HOD. Please go ahead, HOD.
Good afternoon, Chairperson. I appear to be getting some feedback. Sorry that it was a long delay with the Minister's opening remarks. Can you hear me? Chairperson?
Yes, we can hear you, HOD.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you. Let me just dive straight in there. Apologies for that. There appeared to be a technical glitch.
We can hear you loud and clear.
Chairperson, I'm getting quite severe feedback. Okay. This is very difficult. Okay. Chairperson, I must apologize. What's happening is that my voice is repeating back to me about 5 seconds after I speak, which makes concentrating quite difficult.
But from our side, we can hear you loud and clear, and we don't hear the repeating noises.
I will just continue then and try and turn the volume down. Yes, thank you, Chairperson. It's a pleasure to be back before the committee again. It has been a very challenging year that we are reporting on.
Honorable Allen.
Chairperson, thank you so much for acknowledging my hand. I wanted to double check and ask your indulgence. Considering what the HOD is saying, I can understand that could be extremely frustrating and problematic in him relaying his thoughts effectively. Shouldn't we ask potentially for the HOD to leave the meeting and then to just come back? That could potentially take 1 minute.
Okay, that's fine. Let's try that. Let's try that. Then with the HOD, then go. I see there's Terence Arence. Who's Terence?
I will do that immediately, Chair. Please excuse me. Chairperson, I think I'm back in the committee meeting again. Can you confirm that you can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, HOD.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I do apologize for the technical glitch there. As I was saying, it's a pleasure to be back in front of the committee again. I'm unfortunately experiencing the same problem, but I will just plow ahead, if that's all right, with my opening remarks, because I think that otherwise we'll delay proceedings unnecessarily. This has been an extremely difficult year for 2021 that the Provincial Treasury experienced, given the pandemic and its disruptions to our operations, as well as the additional demands that were placed on the Provincial Treasury in taking measures to ensure good governance and the effective performance of functions. What it did do, interest for the committee, is it did result, unfortunately, in some underspending on the vote, which was related to delays in procurement, particularly of IT-related equipment. Delays in appointments, the disruptions in the recruitment cycle, and in 2 cases, some grants being paid to municipalities. We provide further detail on that should the committee further on that. We'll end remarks there, other than to say, of course, the Provincial Treasury remains committed to very good governance, alert to emerging risks, and is continuing to take steps to dynamically strengthen and enhance our own internal governance management systems so that we can maintain our unblemished record of clean works that we've now sustained for 8 years.
Chairperson?
Yes, Honorable Maseko. Yes, I think the HOD has finished in spite of the difficulties that he was experiencing. And also, I must say, even from my side, it has been a bit difficult to actually follow him and hear him. But anyway, let us soldier ahead. But also, I know there was also a presentation that was forwarded to us. I don't know whether is the department going to do that. There's a 7-slide presentation that the department sent. I don't know whether you want to take that as read, honorable members, and then we just go and shoot straight to the sections.
Chairperson, we obviously we do have a presentation prepared, which we could take the committee through. It's a brief presentation, but we are in the
no problem. No problem. Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Chairperson, again, we are in the committee's hands. If you would like that presentation, we could do it. But
please do it. Please do it.
Okay, I'll ask the HOD then to just briefly take us through the presentation.
Thank you very much. Apologies that I seem to be having serious technical difficulties here. If I could hand over to the CFO, and she will take it.
It's much better. I can from my side. I don't know from other members, but I can hear you now much better.
I've switched to my phone now. Oh. So I'm hoping that will make a difference. The CFO has put up the presentation, and it deals with the parts C and E of the annual report. The part C, if I can quickly review it, deals with the enterprise risk management strategy of the Treasury. Of course, we put a lot of emphasis on proactive identification and mitigation of risks, and our UMCO meets on a regular basis to review those risks, and those are discussed, of course, with the Audit Committee as well. There are key risks that we've identified, particularly related to the pandemic. But also the constrained fiscal outlook that we're currently operating in, and risks of regression in supply chain management performance due to a very complicated regulatory environment that public sector procurement operates in. I think a lot of these risks are not going to evaporate. The increasing economic pressure is leading to budget cuts. There are risks of further waves of the pandemic. Our municipalities are under strain and require additional support. And there are new regulatory requirements coming in as well related to information management. One of the areas in which we place a lot of emphasis is on ethics and integrity in the Provincial Treasury, and we've had regular fraud and corruption awareness sessions. We have a zero tolerance approach in that respect. There were no fraud cases identified in the year. We also, as part of that emphasis, if you go to the next slide, please, are taking steps to minimize conflict of interest as well. We make sure that all financial disclosures by senior managers are submitted. We review those carefully, and we haven't identified any conflict of interest. Our internal control environment, I think, continues to remain robust. We put a lot of emphasis, I think, on our 30-day payments. In fact, we're starting to pull our average payment level down well below 30 days, even despite some of the disruptions caused by the pandemic. We do operate our internal control environment within a combined assurance framework, which integrates the various assurance providers and take a risk-based approach to this as well. If we go to that's on the next slide, please, Anna Marie. We've had various assurance engagements with the Audit Committee, that the Audit Committee is aware of, with our internal audit team, and I think I've got some very useful recommendations to strengthen our systems around delegations, records and information management, transfer payments, and COVID-19 related supply chain management transactions. The internal audit team was also a critical part of our Central Procurement Advisory Committee, which we use to navigate complex supply chain management issues associated with responding to the disaster. I don't want to spend too long, Chair, because I feel I've taken up too much time from the committee already, but I will go to the next slide, slide 5, on the report of the Auditor General. I know that you have already had an opportunity to discuss this with the Auditor General. Obviously, the high-level issue there was the material underspending of the budget. In my opening remarks, I did indicate that some of the reasons for that were disruptions to global supply chains, as well as complexities in finalizing recruitments in an online environment during this period. The audit itself focused on Program 2. It did not identify any material findings on the usefulness and reliability of the information, but there was a misstatement which related to quite a complex issue on how one adjusts in the in-year adjustment of performance information as we rearranged our programs to respond to the disaster environment, and we'd be happy to talk to that in further detail. But otherwise, I think we're proud, again, as I said earlier, to have sustained our clean audit now for 8 consecutive years. Chairperson, I will leave the opening remarks there. We'd be obviously most happy to take further questions from members of the committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, HOD. Thank you very much also to the Minister. Nick, I was going to say, please switch off the video. Now, honorable members, I'm going to allow us to interact with the report of both the Provincial Treasury as well as the Racing Board, Gambling and Racing Board. Now, we will first deal with Part C of the report, of both reports, basically. And if I can get an indication of members who would like to ask questions. Please go ahead, Honorable Ngondo.
Thank you, Chair. If on page, trying to open up this page now. Oh yeah, on page 123, if HOD, I think maybe I'm trying to take from what you spoke about earlier on as it relates to, budget stability or fiscal stability in the municipality. I'm not sure whether the last bullet point on the constrained ability of Treasury to improve conformance by municipalities to laws and regulation in the SCM environment, whether there is something extra to the explanation, because you mentioned that, you primarily you would be focusing on the law, on using your legal instruments in as far as as the adherence and ensuring some kind of fiscal discipline and stability. So what would be the type of constraints from your side in as far as the SAM environment is concerned, and how are you mitigating this particular risk you're mentioning here? Thank you very much.
HOD.
Apologies, Chair. I thought there may be other questions there. Yes, thank you, Honourable Nkondo. That is indeed a constraint. I think, as we'd mentioned in the meeting of the Standing Committee on Finance, was that we our approach is both enforcement and enablement. Now, on the enablement side, we'd historically tried to do as much of our activities in person with municipalities, and I think that the pandemic has disrupted that. It may well be bringing us some long-term efficiencies, but it does mean we've had to shift gear in a way to be able to provide more support in an online environment, training and support, where we would previously have done that in through site visits to the municipalities and so forth. And that's obviously very important for detailed explanation of what are often some quite arcane elements of supply chain management regulation. The enforcement side, however, is really a very complex regulatory environment where interpretation is everything, and there can often be some complexities and differences of opinion between our supply chain management specialists, those of the municipality, those of the National Treasury, even those of the Auditor General. And in that environment, there's often uncertainty. And regulatory uncertainty is something one wants to avoid as much as possible or minimize. What we've done in that respect is that we have elevated this issue quite significantly, and I think we've spoken to the committee about this before, really tabulated a broad set of concerns over regulatory ambiguity in the municipal supply chain management space, and we've shared those with National Treasury shortly before the pandemic. In fact, we invited the National Treasury team, both OAG and OCPO, to the province, and we sat with them for a day and a half, as I recall, going through what some of our concerns were on the technical level. What we've subsequently done, having tabulated and shared that in writing with them, is that we have elevated it to the Technical Committee on Finance, which is where a number of which is where all the HODs of the Provincial Treasury sit with the National Treasury on a regular basis. It is very firmly on the agenda, and we are getting regular feedback. We're expecting some more feedback shortly from a specialist committee that's been looking at the regulatory frameworks in the MFMA as well. And we're, of course, engaging on the draft public procurement bill, which is another issue. So we're really looking at a conversion, in short, our conversion to a hybrid environment for providing support, as well as to an enablement to our municipalities, as well as our efforts to encourage more rapid progress with critical regulatory reforms that will reduce ambiguity in the space. But it does remain a risk, and it's one that we want to monitor and make sure that we're addressing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, HOD. Just out of interest, curiosity, HOD, on page 135 of the report, I'm using an electronic report, just the governance structure of the audit committee there. Maybe just this, firstly, how representative of that, the audit committee, how representative of it, of the demographics. And secondly, there seems to be two members. One attended one meeting and another one attended two meetings, whereas the other three have attended 7. Can there maybe be any explanation for that?
Chairperson, we are very fortunate, I think, with our audit committee to have very highly skilled and capable individuals on the audit committee. The representativeness of the committee is something that is considered during the appointment process, but is a function of obviously who applies and how long people have served on committees, because there is a view in Western Cape government that one can't be an audit committee member indefinitely. The attendance by members of the committee is typically very good, and so I think what these figures reflect, and the chairperson may be able to assist me here, is they really reflect the terms of office of individual committee members, the terms of office of individual committee members, and when they commenced or exited on their duties on the committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see the chairperson's hand was up, or is it covered, chairperson?
Yes, thank you, Chairperson. No, the HOD covered that. It's just like Ms. Abdul, it's just the terms of the contract. She was appointed newly, and then so before the end of March, there was only 2 meetings that she could have attended, and the other, Mr. Ismail's contract, he resigned because of work related issues, and that's why only 1 meeting. He attended all the previous meetings the previous year, but that 1 meeting was in the financial or the year under review. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Honorable members, any further questions on both C's, that is the Gambling and Racing Board as well as the Provincial Treasury? If there are no further questions, can we go to E? That deals with financial matters of both reports. Can I get an indication of members who would like to ask questions? Please go ahead, Honorable Ngondlo.
Wow. It's in this Jebele, Chair.
It's your show.
Yeah, no. Let me thank the other members' silence. So Namdi the show for a change. Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to know in part E of the gambling board, if they can just explain more both the irregular and the fruitless expenditure in, I think, page 149 or note 39. If just they can explain that irregular expenditure, how does it come about, and the fruitless and wasteful expenditure, and what is, how is the matter being attended to? And then I'm interested, I've already, I think, in our morning committee, I think one has submitted to request further information on the, in page 140, the contingencies. I think that case, I'm interested if they can just give an indication what elements of the triple BE were taken by the three applicants as it is reported there. One is just interested. I see the case, they managed to win it, but also it's on review. And then Chair, in as far as Treasury is concerned, if they can just explain to a layperson like me, I think under the contingent liability, I think it's the note 17 and 22.4, because I see there's a contingent liability on the litigation on the Grand West. I'm trying, because I'm not an audit person, to try and understand it also where it's there as accrued departmental revenue. Perhaps our learned friends can explain to me what that means. Those are just my two questions, Chair, because most of the issues one has asked them during our committee meeting in the morning. Thank you very much.
Oh, now I understand why there's this silence from other members. You know, they had an opportunity this morning.
I'm telling you.
Okay, no, sure. Please, HOD, go ahead in response.
Thank you, Chairperson. I hope I've sorted my technology out now. I will ask the board to respond to Honourable Nkondlo's first question, and then on the question of contingent liabilities, I will first, to make sure I give the Honourable Member a proper explanation, I will ask Mr. Hadin, our resident specialist on contingent liabilities, to explain the concept of a contingent liability, and then I'll ask the CFO to come in and specifically deal with the point under 17.1. So perhaps if we can start with you, Aziz, if you could just give a very brief layperson's explanation of contingent liability, and then to you, Anna Marie.
Thank you, HOD. To the member, a contingent liability is basically when you put in your financial statements, if something happens, worst case scenario, how much money must the department prepare to pay to a external person? So in the case of a good example would be, let's say the department or the entity is subject to a court litigation. If the case is decided, the judgment goes against the department or the entity, then they would possibly have an outflow. So basically, it is a worst case scenario that departments and entities put in their financial statements to indicate if a possible risk materializes, what is the financial outflow that will happen. Thank you, HOD.
Thank you, Aziz. Anna Marie, would you like to just speak specifically to 17.1?
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everybody. You will see on 17.1, we've got two notes there, and just indicating that even though, and that also relates to the litigation with regards to the gambling board, although there's a litigation against the gambling board, and that could possibly be the amount, will not be against the provincial treasury, but it will be against the provincial revenue fund, as the treasury is not directly involved, but we just thought just to include that as a note. And then obviously the second one is related to the Labour Appeal Court with regards to the ruling with regards to the salary increases. And we've also indicated that the amount is difficult to estimate at this point. With regards to the accrued revenue, so obviously we are on the cash basis of accounting and not accrual basis of accounting. So it's just as a note. So we call it in transactions in financial assets and liabilities. And the gambling board needs to pay over their surplus to the Western Cape Provincial Treasury, and at this stage it was not paid over yet, and as well as the municipalities were supposed to pay over the unspent conditional grants. So that's what we then include as the accrued departmental revenue.
And then, Chairperson, I'll go to the Gambling and Racing Board for the question related to their financial statements.
Good day, Chairperson. I'm Claude Basseday, Chairperson of the Western Cape Gambling and Racing Board. On the question relating to the irregular expenditure, I'm going to hand over to our CFO, Ms. Siva, to answer that. On the question relating to the BE, it is indeed correct that the board won the case in the High Court. It is the subject of appeal at the moment, but I will ask Ms. Kepu, the board's legal manager, to just unpack that in a bit more detail. Thank you.
Thank you, members. Good afternoon, members. To enter members Nkonhlo's question, Member Nkonhlo, the irregular expenditure as disclosed on page 149 of the financial statements relates to two matters. The first matter was where the board procured training from the University of Las Vegas, and then we failed to obtain the tax confirmation status of those supplies from SARS, and the irregular expenditure was raised in that event, and then the amount of 1.5 million was in respect of the board purchasing office furniture, which exceeded 500,000 rand, and we did not go out on tender, but we used limited bidding to procure that furniture, and the Auditor General then it was their evaluation that the board was actually able to go out and tender, but due to the supply chain management capacity in the entity, we felt at the time that we didn't have the capacity to properly evaluate the tender. That amount, as disclosed in the financials, was subsequently condoned by the Provincial Treasury. We also this morning, Mr. Hardin explained the condonation process, and as at the end of the financial year, then currently the board does not have any irregular expenditure. In terms of your question for the fruitless and wasteful expenditure, so also this is in terms of imported services where we failed to pay VAT to foreign suppliers, and then SARS came back and says and indicated that we had to go back 5 years to indicate all those payments where we use foreign suppliers, and where VAT was applicable to imported services. So due to the fact that we did not pay the VAT to SARS, they basically penalized the board to the amount of 2,560 rand, and that was the interest that was then payable on the VAT. That I can assure the member that that process has been finalized during the current year, Yeah, so it has been dealt with. I can also assure the member that in both of the cases for irregular expenditure as well as fruitless and wasteful expenditure, so the board did implement controls. For example, we have a SOP now for limited bidding to go through a process where we, for example, have to address questions like, did we actually test the market? So just to prevent the reoccurrence of irregular expenditure. And then same for fruitless and wasteful expenditure, because seeing that the board is not a VAT vendor, we don't make any VAT payments, but we now obviously know, and then any payments subsequently made to SARS coming back and this whole process being performed, we have been paying the VAT on imported services where the service provider is not registered with SARS. I hope that answers your question, member. Thank you.
Skipper.
Yes, Chair. In relation to that court challenge relative to the broad-based Black economic empowerment conditions imposed by the board, as indicated by the chairperson, the High Court ruled in favour of the board and confirmed that the board was indeed competent to have imposed those conditions on the industry. The licensee took that judgment then on appeal to the SCA, and papers have closed. We now await a set-down date for the matter to be heard or argued in the SCA. That is the current status, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that it, HOD?
Yes, Chair, I think that answers, I hope, both of Honourable Nkondlo's questions.
Just out of interest, the irregularity of 1.5, I think it was mentioned by the CFO, was based on the payment that was made to the University of Las Vegas, if I got it correctly.
Chair, if I may, the 1.5 million was in terms of the furniture that we procured, and then the an amount of 462,000 was made to the University of Las Vegas for training services.
No, thank you very much. Honorable Nkondlo, do you want to make a follow-up?
No, Chair, I would maybe a request for progress, because what I asked was which elements of the BBBE were in question. So I think the response was more general. I just wanted the detail of which elements or the entire BE requirements. If not, I'm sure, Chair, as the matter I had raised in the committee, in the standing committee, to request maybe the judgment itself so that one can read for herself on the matter, because I just wanted context of what are these issues which were being questioned by the applicants. So, but it's fine. That's why I'm asking. They can do a written or just share that court case so that we can be able to read for ourselves. Thanks, Chair.
No, then thank you very much, Honorable Nkondlo. Just one or two questions from my side, HOD. Just as a start, I was just looking at your presentation. The slide 3 says there that under internal control, it says that you conducted an inspection on the performance information which was incorporated to the quarterly status of records review process. Was that on-site inspection that you were, or was just a desktop inspection? And maybe if you can just share some experiences on that. I just find that quite interesting. And
Chair, would you like us to respond to that now, or the other matter?
No, then the other one, I just wanted to just maybe I wanted to ask that as a first question, but it just slipped my mind. The issue of one of the normally, ordinarily, our annual report, we are doing them between November and December, but then there were some departments for some other reasons that could not be able, because we said that their annual report could not be done because there were some problems. What problems did you experience as a result that we ended up looking at it now? What were the delays? That was one. That is one question. But also there was a general question that I always wanted to ask, because right from the beginning, when we were interacting with the Department of the Premier, there was this program, I think it's called the Integrated Finance. The Western Cape was identified by National Treasury as one of the pilot project to do that. I think it's Integrated Financial Management, IFM something. I think you will know that. Maybe when we discussed about it, then it was said that the department that can really shed some light on it is the treasurer, is the provincial treasurer. If maybe you can shed some light on it, how far is it? What is the hold up? And then maybe is there no way that we can also just get started on that program? The other question I had, again, a general question we've been also asking. I think at some point we stopped asking because we thought that, look, it will be relevant to ask to the provincial treasurer. You know, we are known in the province for, we specialize on clean audit. I think out of the 12 departments, probably 10, up more than 10 actually will have clean audits. But then if you look at the rate of service delivery, it's not in sync with this clean audit. There's one of the members, I think it was a member, or in the discussion was saying that I think it was an audit committee that that's a classic statement that says that, look, you can have the Department of Safety as an example getting a clean audit, but the question is, are we safe? You know, so now obviously some people say that, look, maybe the solution will be we should start embarking on what is called, which is really my question I wanted to go to, I was just preparing for it, is the issue of performance audit. Now, what is the department's view on the issue of performance audit? Are we ready for performance audit? If we go the route of performance audit, like it might have been suggested by some, that maybe we can begin to see the balance between service delivery and clean audit. As I said, we specialize on clean audit. I think we can actually run a course on clean audit for other provinces, you know. But then if you look at the rate of service delivery, it seems not to talk to that. Now, of course, we're told that maybe the department we can talk to regarding the issue of performance audit can be the provincial treasurer. So I would like just maybe to, it's just a general comment, I would like to get the view of the department on that.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. There's some very interesting questions. I'll ask my colleague Nadia Ismail and the CFO to come in on the question of the inspection of the performance information. But what we were really doing there is to make sure that our quarterly record keeping was integrated and complete. That now that can be done. You know, the provincial treasury does not operate many large public-facing services. I mean, we do operate some, say for example, the procurement client center, and obviously our budget documentation is a very important part of explaining to citizens what it is that government does. But we want to make sure that a lot of our the record keeping around the products that we produce relative to the the performance indicators that we strive to achieve, that whole document system is very well maintained and easy to surveil. So I think I'll ask Nadia Ismail and Anna-Marie Smith to talk a little bit further to that. When it comes to the delays this year, which were most unfortunate, there were a range of, I mean, I think the bigger complexity, of course, is that we were all operating, both the Auditor General and ourselves and National Treasury, in an online environment. It was very different to how we normally operate. But what we did was there were some very, very technical issues that were to do with the interpretation of the National Treasury Instruction Note 5 and the Provincial Treasury Circular 23, which were related to procurement under disaster conditions, and they really revolved around a second order question of the role of the relevant Treasury. So, what authority could the Provincial Treasury issue that Circular 23 and so forth? So it required quite a bit of to and fro, on Auditor General side, to their own specialists, from our side, obviously internally, but also with National Treasury and the OCPO. And that process just unfortunately took quite a long time to resolve. But eventually it was resolved, and I think there's some important precedents that were established in the process around the interpretation of what constitutes the relevant Treasury and so on and so forth. With respect to the IFMS, the Integrated Financial Management System, as you're aware, the Western Cape is a pilot site for the IFMS, but the national efforts to roll out an IFMS have been quite badly delayed. Part of that is obviously methodological. In its initial conception, the IFMS was intended to provide, it rolled out as a sort of cascading top-down structure that integrated all government financial management systems. Something that would be, it's something that is much easier said than done when one is dealing with very large active legacy systems, such as Provincial or BAS, that are already operational. The approach of the Provincial Treasury, we strongly do support modernization and integration of our financial management systems. But we are, and we are very keen, we're a very keen and active participant in the IFMS pilot. But alongside that, we are also trying to what we call evergreen our legacy systems like Provincial and BAS, and extract greater value out of them, and undertake a whole range of data cleansing work that we think is going to be necessary anyway for IFMS implementation. We're hoping in doing that we will be able as a pilot to influence not just the final design of the IFMS, but the methodology for its implementation as well. In other words, if you look at the global experiences of large-scale financial management systems reforms, there are a lot of important lessons there. In fact, all large-scale government software systems. The first is that one doesn't want to necessarily rely on a centralized top-down approach to the reform program. One wants to allow it to evolve over time. And they're very, I think, interesting experiences from places like Lithuania or the FBI's criminal database in the US, case management database in the US, and so forth, that indicate that one does need to take a much more nuanced approach. So I think we are definitely strong supporters of the objective of an IFMS. We wanting to be part of the lead in rolling that out, and we wanting to bring our own experience and perspective to the party, and doing so through the work that we are undertaking already. On the question of performance auditing, yes, a clean audit is one data point. that is suggestive of sustainable service delivery. But it's not the only data point. There's not a straight line correlation between the two. We are firmly of the view that good governance, including good financial governance, is a pathway to improved and sustainable service delivery. It's not possible to have, we think it is rather highly unlikely that if you were to have an adverse or disclaimed audit opinion, you are somehow managing to deliver services to communities effectively, efficiently, and sustainably, and in an accountable way. However, I think we do recognize that where we are in our level of maturity in our systems in the Western Cape government is that we need to move from conformance with the rules and regulations, which is something that we have, as you noted, have some achievements in that respect, towards performance, a greater focus on performance in service delivery, and that is a journey that we are currently on. Whether that means that one wants to immediately start auditing the performance process, I think one needs to, the non-financial performance side, as you were suggesting in terms of performance auditing, I think one needs to approach with a degree of nuance and caution. So an audit process by its very nature is very compliance driven, and it can have introducing more compliance-focused performance auditing at too earlier stage can have the effect of things like targets being drastically dumbed down and so forth. So one's really got to have a discussion around what do we mean by performance auditing and service delivery impacts for communities? What tools are available to us? Is it just performance auditing? Are there other tools of citizen and civic engagement that can be used to help improve service delivery outcomes and make them responsive to the needs of citizens as they might change? Interestingly enough, this is an issue that we have taken up, and the Premier's also taken up with the new Auditor General. And even this week, the Auditor General's office had inquired around when we are going to have a long-planned workshop to discuss the future of audit reform in the Western Cape. And I think that that's an exciting opportunity that we will certainly be taking up to have a more forward-looking discussion of how we help our oversight and governance systems to achieve service delivery outcomes. And it becomes more important, I think, in an environment of growing fiscal constraints. And there isn't that engagement, that technical engagement that we are planning with the AG, and I know that she herself is going to be very interested in the outcomes. And we obviously have a number of ideas in that respect, but I think we share an objective in trying to make sure that our systems of good governance are not the end point, but one of the data points on an ongoing journey to improve service delivery. So let me then just ask Ms. Ismail and Ms. Smith if they wanted to add anything on the performance information and status of records process.
Thank you very much. I will respond as the internal control. Oh, I'm also echoing. As the internal control inspections is done under the Office of the CFO. So for now, it was only it's a desktop exercise. It is just checking that the evidence exists for the reported achievements per quarter, per indicator. So that is all that we are currently doing. I think it's also the first time this financial year that we have done such an inspection, because in previous years when the AG came and did the audit, we were lacking in some of the evidence that was not on the evidence files. So that's why we decided to implement this performance, the checking of the performance information on a quarterly basis. So thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, HOD. Just the last one, just as a parting shot, as I've also maybe taken off from the performance audit that we've just talking about, and maybe the lead that the provincial treasury can take in terms of that. Now, what responsibility does, in spite of all this clean audit, some of the clean audit or unqualified audit, they do have some emphasis of matters, or they do have some irregularities. Now, for example, there were about 2 or 3 departments that have quite a lot of serious irregularities. And then, of course, they were also raised by the Auditor General when they interact with that. Maybe from the Treasury point of view, what steps or action are you actually envisaging in terms of dealing with that and interacting with those departments, or you just leave it to those departments to sort it themselves?
So Chair, absolutely not. We see our role as the Provincial Treasury as both an enablement role and an enforcement role. Now, with respect to enablement, we are already in conversation with all of the departments around issues that came up during the audit process, both those that are transversal and those that are specific to particular votes. Because I think it's very important, and certainly my perspective on the audit process is it's not binary. There's always a lesson to be learnt for management from an audit process, and we've got to dig and make sure that we understand those lessons, that we adjust and improve our systems on an ongoing and continuous basis. So auditing is really the audit is a developmental exercise. So what we do is we do consolidate all of the information that comes from the audit process, and we categorize it, and we develop programs and interventions that are transversal in nature, where that's appropriate to the issue. We may even have specific training programs or circulars or guidance notes that may emerge from that. We will also, if the department, a particular department, is in agreement, we would also assist them in addressing any audit issues that come up from that are specific to their own audits. On the enforcement side, there's obviously, when there is irregular expenditure, there's a condonation process that is required in order to address that, and that is carefully regulated. It has a governance system and a decision framework that is used in order to process those, and the Provincial Treasury has the condonation working committee that is now processing the backlog in condonation applications, and it's a job that they take extremely seriously and are no light touch in the applications that are received before any condonation is considered. Let me ask, I think, Mr. Hadin to talk a little bit further, and Ms. Kantana to talk a little bit further to that issue on the audit follow-up, and perhaps if you could also just touch on some of the main themes that we've already picked up across departments that are areas of interest or areas of development for us as a province for next year. Jalinda and then Aziz.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you, HOD, and good afternoon, Chair and members. So there's a number of support initiatives, and Aziz is going to speak to the bulk of it, but I think, Aziz, we need to mention to the committee our F's consistency workshops on both the municipal side and as well as the provincial side, because that was certainly a first of its kind, and we're quite chuffed about that and very proud of the work that the team has put in. And then there's obviously the training, the support that's provided. Aziz will then share the detail with the committee. Aziz?
Thank you, HOD, Jalinda, and then to the committee. I think we've largely been covered by the program that the HOD has outlined. On an annual basis, after the audit has been completed, and during the audit process, we support the departments and we identify issues that are of a transversal nature, sorry, and that is of a client-specific nature. Now, as to risks that has been identified, it's still issues around the BBBEE disclosure requirements, further compliance requirements in terms of what the DTIC is looking for versus what the Commissioner is looking for. But what the committee will pick up from the financial statements and across all of the departments, in the current year, this was one of the years in which we had received the highest clean audit outcomes over the last 5 years, and that is essentially 12 out of the 14 departments. Most of when the committee or when you look at the financial statements and the annual reports, you will identify that in most cases, the matters that are raised within the departments that had not obtained the clean audit, in most cases, they are first-time matters. And essentially what that means is most of the recurring matters that's picked up, or most of the matters that are picked up, are cleared during the year. Now, this takes a significant process in terms of, as Julinda has mentioned, we do the consistency workshops, we do training to departments, and then we also have the process that is called CGRO, which is your corporate governance review and outlook. And in this, it's a program where departments have to indicate that these were the findings that were identified. This is a program that we put in place on a quarterly basis. The Provincial Treasury will assess with the support that is provided whether or not there's progress against the findings that has been identified. So it is an intensive program that is reiterative, that is continuous, so that by the time that it comes to submitting your financial statements, it is as fair and as reasonably stated as can be expected from any department or public entity. In terms of the training, we take all the departments through annual updates where National Treasury issues the frameworks. We also have our own training that we take the departments through because governance is everybody's business. But what we do as an enabler is to ensure that the departments are aware of all of the laws and regulations that becomes applicable. As it relates to matters of interpretation, obviously there will always be or there could be differences between how one party sees it versus how another party sees it. And what we have done is we have formalized what we call the alternative dispute resolution mechanism. And in the year under review, we are going to further entrench how to clarify any differences of interpretation so that we try and sort out any of the differences and that there is no delays in finalizing any of the reports. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, HOD. I think I got more than I bargained for. Thank you very much for that elaborative and informative response. It was very, very helpful. Now, honorable members, I don't see any hands that members as to indicate whether they would like to have follow-up questions. Mr. Davids, are there any members of the public who are present and who have indicated that they would like to ask questions so that we can allow them to ask questions if they so wish?
Honorable Chairperson, no, there's no indication from the members of the public, Chairperson.
Not even attendance from the public?
No, Chairperson.
That is that. Okay, at least yesterday we had 3 attendants.
Yeah, on the YouTube channel, okay.
Yes,
there was one stakeholder that indicated that she will observe today's
okay.
from YouTube, Chairperson.
Okay, no, thank you very much for that. In us trying to round up, then, Honorable Minister, are there any remarks that you would like to make?
Thank you, Chairperson. Aside from thanking you very much for the questions, there are no concluding remarks from me. But thank you very much for the session.
Thanks. HOD?
Chairperson, other than just to apologize for my technical issues that left me a little flustered at the beginning of the meeting, no further remarks from my side.
Thanks very much. The chairperson of the board, Racing and Gambling Board, are there any closing remarks that you'd like to make, Chairperson?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Now, just to confirm that we will, in response to Honourable Nkontlo's questions about the BE matter, we will send that judgment over, or at least provide the link to that judgment. It's actually a very interesting judgment to read. But other than that, thank you very much for the opportunity to present our annual report, for the questions and for the guidance. Thank you very much.
The CEO, any remarks you'd like to make?
Nothing to add, sir, but thank you very much for this opportunity. And you wish all the best, sir. Thank you very much. Bye.
Chairperson of the Audit Committee, Racing Board.
Chair, nothing to add. Thanks for the opportunity. And let's hope that we keep this clean audit status going to the next year. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much. The Chairperson of the Audit Committee, Provincial Treasury.
Nothing further from my side. Thank you, Chair. I think we've got a very good and competent team there, and they've, like you say, very comprehensive questions. So I don't think there's any uncertainty relating to any issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much. AG.
Chairperson, nothing to add from my side, but if you may just allow me a minute just to introduce our newly appointed Deputy Business Unit Leader, Mr. Thomas Mamogwe. He has joined our proceedings and he will become a familiar face at future SCOPA meetings. So if he can maybe just speak a word just to introduce himself. Thomas, you're muted.
You are on mute.
Yeah. Yes, I can see. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here and to share this platform with everyone and to meet all the familiar faces, not so familiar yet. They'll get familiar with time. And I'm looking forward to working with everyone. And thank you very much, honourable members, and to the department. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. And also welcome to the Western Cape, and also welcome to our workings in the Western Cape Provincial Parliament. As you've indicated, you will be working a lot with us in the Standing Committee on Public Account, and you'll get used to us. You will realize as we go along that we are good people, we are nice people. We are sometimes difficult, but we are just trying to do our job of accountability. Welcome. Thank you very much. Also, Honourable Minister, thank you very much for always being available and then and be able and willing to interact with us in spite of us asking difficult questions. And HOD and your team, thank you very much once again for coming and making the appearance. It might definitely, obviously, it's not the last day you are interacting with us. We'll take some resolution where we might invite and say, look, I would like clarity on this matter and clarity on this matter. And as I normally say, it's really not with malice. It's just basically not also trying to catch you out. It's just trying to make sure that we do our role and play our responsibility of accountability. And I think with accountability, there comes good governance. Those two are always working hand in hand. Thank you very much for your availability. And also to the audit committees, both audit committees, thank you very much for your work that you've been doing. And then, of course, we are looking forward to be working with you throughout the year. The year is still very early and still very new. We'll be interacting a lot with each other going forward. Thank you very much. And lastly, obviously, to the Auditor General for always being available and being a dependable ally in our responsibility and in us exercising our accountability responsibility. Thank you very much. I think at this stage you may be excused so that we can continue as a committee with some of the work of the committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
There you are, honorable members. We have come to the almost to the end of our meeting, and having this has been the last department that we have looked into in terms of the annual report, and together with the Auditor General report and the reports of the audit committees. I know that it has been a very long and laborious work. I think for now, we will just discuss our way forward, what we are going to do. Maybe before we do that, I just want to get an indication, are there any resolution that you'd like to propose or take in respect of the discussion we have in terms of the annual report of the department? Honorable Nkondlo.
Hi, Liteko Lam, Chair. And I'm enjoying.
It's your
Chair, I think I've already made, and the gambling board has agreed also to share the information. That's one. The second one, Chair, is that on this National Treasury instruction note, I'm interested if we can get from Treasury an indication, given the fact that they have this arrangement in the province, if there has been any particular deviations that as the provincial treasury, they had to recommend for any of the departments, including themselves, from those National Treasury instruction notes, if they could share such, so that one is just able to get a sense of what sort of compose those differences as one issue that the AG has raised as a risk. So one is just asking if AG, if Provincial Treasury can give us some of those examples where they had to deviate from the national instruction of National Treasury. Again, for them to share the condonation framework. They had already mentioned that they do have such a framework, because one is just interested to understand what goes in and what guidelines are followed to actually enable condonation of some of these irregular and wasteful expenditures. So I think it's that a framework, Chair, if they can share with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think that has been well captured in terms of this department. Now then, if there are no further honorable members, I wanted to ask, now I know we have seen all the 14 departments. Now, obviously, there are certain resolution that we have taken regarding those. Like I proposed the last year that if maybe we can just at our next meeting, obviously the procedural officer is going to prepare the usual comprehensive report with all the resolution that we've taken, because sometimes I take it that we don't necessarily have to always have to call department. I like the idea we started of actually asking for write-up, because sometimes you can call the whole department, they come in up here, and only to find out you don't have questions. Now, if we can get a situation whereby we ask those, but I think at our next meeting, when we look at the comprehensive report, we can decide whether we would like to get a written report on this one, or would like this one to come in up here so that we can ask further questions, you know. So, but then we can have that discussion once the report of all the annual reports have been presented as a norm by the procedural office. if that is in order with you, honorable members. That will mean that we have come to the end of the meeting. It has been quite an interesting exercise as usual. And then thank you very much for your attendance, and also thank you very much for your support as well and your cooperation during the whole process. It has not been an easy process, but your cooperation and your support and your attendance has actually make my work a little bit better and easier. Thank you very much, honorable members. The meeting is closed.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Chair. Bye.